Hello.
Hey Ben, what's going on?
Hey, Brad. Not too much.
Great.
Nice to hear from you.
Yeah, man, great to hear from you too. I appreciate you doing this. I
Man,
don't,
thank you. Thank you for having me.
of course, yeah, I don't know if you remember me from Smalls,
I do
but
remember. Yeah, we chatted a little bit after the show.
yeah, you were very courteous to me as just some
Yeah.
random dude in the audience, so I appreciate that. But really, what you've been doing with Ari and his trio is fantastic. Is it Hoenig? Am I pronouncing it correct?
Yeah, Ari Hoenig. Yeah.
Hoenig, I thought
Um,
so.
yeah, that's been honestly that was sort of a bit of a saving grace for me during the pandemic when everything was still shut down. I left the city for about 7 or 8 months, and then I came back in December, and then around February or March, Ari just he kind of just randomly hit me up. He's like, "Hey, you want to come over and play?" I didn't even know who the piano player was going to be, and I get there and happens to be Gadi Lahavi, who I already knew previously, and is a great friend of mine. And then that just became a regular thing. We got together basically once a week, and now here we are, like 3 4 months later, and we actually just went into the studio over the weekend to do Ari's next record. So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome! I can't wait to hear it. You guys really had a great chemistry. I mean, the way the improvisation flowed and the way you guys played together was really a great thing to get to see. So I'm hoping I can make it down for another show soon. Are you on
Definitely.
any of Ari's albums already, or is this going to be your first project
No,
with him?
this will be my first recording with him.
Okay, so when you're working with him as a band leader, is there anything about him as a band leader that is unique to you, or the way he thinks about running a song, or the way he communicates as a band leader?
Um, well, something I appreciate about him is he can be very in the moment, kind of spur of the moment. He's very much just about wanting to create something in the present. Like we might kind of talk about what we're gonna do, and then we'll just change it entirely. But yeah, I mean he's just he's just got so much energy, um, and and particularly as a drummer, something I really appreciate about him is just the dynamics that he uses. And I mean, he can play so intense but not loud. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
that's just a sign of his maturity as a musician. But it's like so exciting, but also he can just really keep a lid on it and just stretching things. And he's just it's like he's the band leader, of course, but he really makes it feel like we're all three equals in the trio. He's always open to letting somebody else kind of take things in a different direction. He can follow just as much as he leads. You know what I mean?
yeah. Very cool. Like I said, I'm excited to hear that album come out. I was just reading just before doing this interview. I just got done with my other interview, and I'm reading stuff about you, trying to get a little bit of extra last minute research in.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize you were the bassist on Kingmaker, the Joel Ross album,
Yes.
which I
Yep.
love.
That's
I love
that's
that
me. Yeah.
album, and I had no ideas. What was that experience like? Like how does Joel compare as a band leader compared to Ari?
So Joel is just like he's kind of like he's just a rocket. He's like he has such a strong vision. I knew him before he moved to New York. We actually we did Banff in Canada together. There's this summer jazz program. It's like creative improvisational music. It's like very open. Um, a really cool program that Vijay Iyer has led for. I think he just announced that he's not going to do it anymore. But for I don't know 10 15 years, Vijay was leading that. So I met Joel there, and then I just watched like he came. I moved to New York 2015. Joel moved here about 6 months later, and I mean he just came here with a vision, and he's just been taken off, and it's been awesome just watching that happen. And yeah, I mean I just got to be a part of it. Like I was playing in that band for a couple years there, and then yeah, we went into the studio. We did 11 tunes in one day, and it was so intense. But yeah, I mean, he's also like, he's just so about. I mean, and that's kind of just the idea with jazz in general, is like, we're improvising, so it's all about just really wanting to create something in the moment, and it's all, you know, about the audience, and just having that experience shared between the musicians and the audience members, and trying to create something fresh and new every time, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely, and I'm like I said, it was cool to see that you were on that, because I've been a fan of that album since it first came out. So I didn't even realize it's so interesting to see the little connections between things.
Yeah, well, and I'm listed as Benjamin on that record. I don't, for some reason, I decided, he asked if I wanted to go by Ben or Benjamin. At the time, I was like, I want to go with Benjamin, but everybody knows me as Ben. So on my record that's about to come out, I'm just Ben.
Well, so this record that's about to come out, it's your first record, right? It's your first
Yes,
major release.
it's my recording debut.
Yep, and the first single is coming out tomorrow.
It is. Yep.
Do you want to give me an idea of what to expect sonically or ideally behind the music you're creating, or do you want it to be a little bit of a mystery? I don't know. What would you rather tell me about it?
Well, I think that even if I do, I'm definitely happy to try and describe it, but I think even with the description and trying to give you what to expect, I think that I can't really put it into words. I think it's, I can talk about like the inspiration, which is just like my personal, some of my biggest musical inspirations. I have to mention Avishai Cohen, the bass player. When I discovered his music back in high school, it was sort of like I discovering the music that I always dreamed of making myself, and then I'm like, oh wow, somebody's already do it. Like, this is just my dream music, basically. And kind of what he goes for, and I guess like in a way that's sort of what I'm going for too, is this aesthetic where it's like very rhythmically active and complex, but as far as melodically and harmonically, it tends to be more simple, like almost more kind of folk music. So with the single, it's called Emotion, but the E is in parentheses, and the idea with that is it's like emotion / motion. I actually wrote that song when I was doing a cruise ship gig back in 2013, I think. And it was like a particularly rocky day at sea, and I had access to the grand piano during the day, so I would just go and I'd sit down and just mess around. And then this time I was feeling particularly emotional. I mean, it's being stuck out on sea for months can be pretty daunting and can really kind of take a toll on your mental health. And so I was just kind of emoting through the piano while the waves were just kind of going crazy. So that's kind of where the title comes from. But yeah, like what you'll hear is it's harmonically, I mean, there's parts that are more kind of faster moving harmonies, but then it's the melody is very pentatonic. So it's like very, very singable melodies over very rhythmically complex structures.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing it. And you got me thinking more about Avishai Cohen. I gotta dig a little deeper into their discography. I think I was looking on Instagram, and you were doing a transcription, one of your more recent videos, right?
Oh yeah, I did a transcription. That was just something, because like back when everything was mostly still locked down, Avishai started just posting some videos of him playing. And I saw some other people were doing some transcriptions, and then he was even kind of sharing them together on his page, and I took it as an opportunity to just like learn this really cool melody. I took what he did, I put it in a different time signature just for the challenge.
Well, yeah, I saw that, and I mean, I love the groove you kind of had going with it, but the fact that you're taking on a challenge and adding that extra element to it. It's cool. It's got me wanting to practice just watching something like that.
Yeah, I mean that was a time when I really just had myself to motivate myself to pick up my instrument. You know, it was like so I was just looking for anything to kind of just flex my fingers and stuff. You know.
Yeah. Do you feel like you were able to kind of keep a good momentum throughout the pandemic as far as working on your craft and approaching your goals, or did you feel like there were times where it was hard to keep things together in that respect?
I think mostly the latter point. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
mostly it was a big pause, especially in the beginning when it was just we all just didn't really even understand we couldn't really wrap our heads around what was happening, and it was just I mean, it literally felt like my life was just being stripped away from me. And I know a lot of, especially artists and people that live in New York City, and they're used to this. I mean, seeing like hundreds of different faces a day, going from that to nothing, was it took a toll for sure. I spent months not even really having motivation to pick up my instrument, let alone try and write music. So that was a lot of that was like the first half of the pandemic, I'd say, was very much just kind of and not trying to guilt myself about it either, and just being like, this is what it is, and just trying to live day by day, and time heals, and over time I kind of just was able to shift towards more positive thinking, and got more inspired. And I mean, a huge help was finally returning to New York. I mean, I was driving back. I was in Rochester for most of the pandemic. I was driving back with my car full of my stuff. It was like December 1st. And it was like they had just started announcing everything was going to be shutting down again because they were getting another wave of the virus. And I was thinking, like, what am I doing? Why am I going back to New York just to be stuck in my apartment? But I knew there was a reason, which was just I needed to get back to where the heart of the community is for me.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge help, and just coming back here and just planting the seeds again, just getting together with the guys. Like in my band, for example, on my record, I just we started getting together, doing some sessions with the masks on and everything, and so it's just been I've been slowly getting back to it.
So would you say at this point now, it's still building up? Would you say things are pretty full steam for you right now?
It's honestly, it's kind of it feels kind of crazy just how quickly things are picking up again, and they the numbers on the virus were the vaccinations were really starting to work. It seemed the numbers have, especially in New York State, have been really low, and then they lifted the restrictions, and bam, it's like now bass. I mean, I recently had to get a sub for a gig on bass, and I tried like 14 or 15 different bass players, and every single person was busy.
Wow.
So it's I mean, we've been kind of hitting the ground running. I'm having to quickly relearn how to just manage my schedule, manage my time again. But it's exciting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm getting back to the point where I've got stuff going on just about every day, and it can be stressful, but it feels a lot better than that kind of waiting around.
Yeah, exactly. Just going, having nothing but time.
Yeah, and I feel like I was prepared for not having work. I've been saving my money and all that, so it could have hit me harder. But it's good to see other musicians getting back to work too. Like you said, like having trouble finding a sub is stressful, but better than
But at the same
people
time,
fighting
it's like,
for gigs.
Yeah, exactly.
So as far as like promoting your new album goes, are you booking a lot of your own shows, or are you mainly working as a sideman right now?
Moving forward, the plan is to start booking a lot more shows with my band to promote the album. We are going to have a CD release party, basically, at the Jazz Gallery in Manhattan. So the album itself is being released Friday, September 17th, and we're going to have a show the night before on the 16th. I've got the first single coming out tomorrow, and then in August I'm going to release a second single, and then September is the full album release. And so right now I've got that one show at the Jazz Gallery. I'm going to plan to book some, moving into the rest of the fall and the winter, and ideally start doing some touring with this band. I've spent the majority of my time in New York. I'm in my 7th year here, and I've spent most of that time as a sideman. And moving forward, I really want to start prioritizing my own music, because I've been writing music since I was in elementary school, basically, and I really haven't done so much with it, but I have a lot to say as a composer. So I'm really, really excited to just finally start stepping into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've certainly built a good enough resume where I feel like you don't have to take anything at this point. I think it's a good time to kind of show everyone like your idea of what music should sound like.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
yeah.
You said you're from Canada?
Rochester, actually, pretty close to Canada.
Okay, because you said you met Joel in Canada, so
it's a gorgeous place. It's called Banff, Banff, Canada, in Alberta.
Okay.
That's just a summer program that we all flew into.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, now that we got that cleared up, growing up in Rochester, how did you start in music?
So my father's a musician. He's a high school band director, and he also does like the U of R jazz bands, and classical bands, and he's also a sax player. He's a jazz sax player, and he does his own band. And I mean, I grew up going and hearing him play with his own band and with other bands. So I mean, I grew up with instruments in the house, basically.
Yeah.
Elementary school is when I started just really messing around on the piano a lot, and I really enjoyed trying to kind of figure out melodies I'd hear on TV or just explore sounds.
So, early on when you were playing, did your dad's jazz influence play a major role, or was it more just a fascination with music in general? Like, what kind of stuff were you learning to play, listening to for fun?
The very primary stuff was literally just I'd go to a football game that they'd have like the pep band playing at the game, and I would hear a melody and be like, oh, that's cool. And then but then later on, what I drew from my father's music is mainly just the soulfulness that he plays with, because stylistically we're pretty different, I would say. He's more contemporary jazz. Like one of his biggest influences, David Sanborn, and his working band that he's had for the past, I think, 7 or 8 years. It's kind of like fusion, not like 70s fusion, but more rock jazz almost. But yeah, what I've always loved about my dad's playing is just, he just plays with so much soul. He's got a really nice sound, and that's like, I've always really strived for that too. And yeah.
So, but would you say early on, were you into that type of music from a young age, or was there like something else that really like grabbed you early on? Were you into like, oh, I don't know, like the Beatles, or like some bubblegum pop thing that you wouldn't even necessarily listen to now? Like,
I remember, I think it was like 5th grade. My godmother took me to an NSYNC concert. You couldn't even hear the band over the girls screaming. But then, middle school, I really started getting into classic rock. I have an uncle that he plays in like a cover band, and he started showing me records and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I went through all sorts of, like, I went through even like almost like emo phase, like listening to like emo bands in 6th grade. And then I kind of, yeah, I mean, Beatles that's a great example. I got really into their music. Yes, the band Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I would say I'm pretty influenced by them too. Yeah, I started really getting into more like the progressive stuff, which tends to be a lot more rhythmically and harmonically complex, which is, I mean, I think the older I get, the more I want to play more simple music, but especially when I was younger, I was just really into like if I heard new weird rhythms, I always wanted to try and figure out what was going on and try and understand it, you know?
Yeah. No, but I mean, that list of artists is really interesting because I feel like a lot of people have some similar trajectory before they really get deep into music. Like, it's funny you say In Sync because one my earliest musical memories was my parents had a Now That's What I Call Music Volume 4
Yep.
CD.
Volume 4, that's the one, man.
Dude,
yeah, I was obsessed.
same. Like when I was like 4 or 5 years old, that was like my first musical memory was those songs.
Yeah.
And that I loved it. Like I'm not really into that stuff now, but I loved it at the time, and it is like a big memory for me. And then my older brothers were getting really into classic rock type stuff, so I got really into the Beatles and the Who, and like you said, Yes, I was really into all that. And then and then I wasn't into the emo stuff, but I got really into punk rock and ska in middle school and high school. And I didn't start like looking at just all music as something I loved, and until like later high school, I started getting into like jazz, and Frank Zappa was a really big influence for just breaking me out of my my I guess pigeonholing myself in punk rock. But it's just funny because there's the similarities there with In Sync, and then Yes, and then like the high school punk esque like tendencies of emo music. It's just funny to hear that.
Another obsession that randomly worked its way into my like best friend group, I guess in like 9th and 10th grade, was Dream Theater.
Oh yeah.
Like me and my buddies, like we just kind of like we started geeking out on that stuff. We went to a couple of their shows, and I mean now it's like every now and then I go back and I listen, but it's stuff that I can't really. I don't really want to listen to it for very long anymore.
Yeah. No, go on.
Go ahead. Another one was the Shrek soundtrack. Like when I was a kid, I remember it was like Now 4, and then I had the Shrek soundtrack CD, and I just got obsessed with those pop songs.
Yeah.
I do want to actually mention because there was like a pretty distinct transition for me from really starting to get into jazz, and there was basically I think it was one Christmas, maybe when I was, 15, 16, my dad got me a Bad Plus CD. The Bad Plus Give is the album, and it was sort of the perfect segue because, I mean, these guys literally take rock songs like that everybody knows, and then they just dissect them and they put it in like a jazz piano trio setting, and it's like, I mean, yeah, I've always really loved what they've done, where they basically, it's like they on one hand they're like rocking out, and on the other hand they're playing free jazz almost, you know?
Yeah.
And so that really hit me, and I was like, oh man, jazz is really cool. Even like the Reed Anderson, the bass player, I mean, the sound he gets, he almost sounds distorted. It just got such a growly sound on the upright bass.
Yeah, I love that.
And it just sounded so cool to me at the time, and I was like, wow, I think I actually really like jazz. Because, I mean, at the time I was playing in, community jazz bands and stuff like that, but my beginning approach to jazz was sort of like in an educational way, like, I'm learning more about just music in general, how to be a better musician. And then they kind of segued me into, oh, I think I actually really love this music. And then I started discovering other stuff. And then one of the other albums I discovered right early on was John Coltrane Felonious Monk. They have a duo album, and I just got so obsessed with that. And I mean, Coltrane specifically, just, I mean, there's something in his playing that is seriously magical, and just spoke to me. I mean, to this day, I think John Coltrane, I don't think there's anybody that speaks to me quite as deeply with just every note that he plays, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And he was an early influence for me too when I was first getting into jazz. I mean, Blue Train is one of the first jazz albums that truly like resonated with me. Or and you know, like, besides that, you know, like Bad Plus was one of the first bands my older brother recommended to me that you know, helped me get into jazz. But the stuff that was really hooking me at that time was like Wayne Shorter, Speak No Evil, Tones for Jones Bones by Chick Corea, Pithecanthropus erectus by Charles Mingus. I mean, yeah, like that's the kind of stuff that was like hooking me early on. But it's funny you mentioned Dream Theater because you know, I'm not deep into Dream Theater, but like one of my close friends, old roommate of mine, great metal guitarist Paul Rietmeyer, he is a huge Dream Theater fan, like biggest Dream Theater nerd I've ever met. So has also made its way into my my friend groups. So it's just funny. There's like so many like very similar influences that I hear when I like talk to musicians about like where they kind of got their sound from, you know, or what they've heard over the years. But
and because we grew up in a time, I mean, I think just things get more and more eclectic, and we grew up in a time where we had access to. We started having access to all kinds of music, and then the internet became a thing, and then everybody's putting music online, and it became so easy to discover new music.
Yeah.
And I have to give my friend a shout out, John Arbuckle. Nobody's a bigger Dream Theater fan than him, so I don't know. I think your friend and him maybe can be rivals on that, but he's actually the engineer of my album.
Oh, awesome.
He recorded it and mixed it, and then Nate Wood did the mastering. But yeah, we recorded at the studio that Dream Theater actually has done a lot of their albums at, and he came there as an intern specifically because he was like, oh man, Dream Theater has work here, and then he actually got the opportunity to work on a couple of their records at the studio. It's called Cove City Sound Studios in Glen Cove, Long Island. That's where we did our record, and John is now like the head engineer there, and he's just the man. I mean, because he does mostly rock and pop, but then, you know, we came in and did this jazz album, and it's just, I mean, it's second to none with the level of just, you know, attentiveness to detail and everything. I couldn't be happier with what the job that he did.
Super cool. I hope my friend Paul listens so he can be jealous. But yeah, no, it's just cool, the connections, because like even though you have your like diehard favorite things, I mean, you're being into so much music as a full-time musician. I feel like you find so many other musical connections with other people you talk to. So I don't know. I like trying to peel out the weirdest little interests or guilty pleasures that people have from their musical past.
Britney Spears is one that I still I love. Some of her songs I just get obsessed with, so that's a guilty pleasure for sure.
Yeah, I definitely remember hearing that stuff early 2000s. Toxic coming on MTV, a young, confused version of me.
Exactly.
Being very interested.
But even, man, some of like her new-ish, I mean, it's not even so new anymore, but like some of her stuff that's come out like after 2010, I've gotten really, because actually, believe it or not, EDM became a big obsession of mine in college. I went to University of Miami, and I mean, it's funny because that was like 2010, 2011, that I was heading down to Miami for college, and it was right around that. It was like that year and a half where dubstep became an obsession.
Yeah.
It became like this big fad. And then Miami is like the electronic capital of the country. So I think it was partly an environmental thing, but I just got obsessed with house music.
So who's your favorite dubstep artist then? If you could name one.
Well, dubstep, I mean, I actually, I don't really have a favorite dubstep specifically artist. A Cookie Monster is pretty cool.
Okay.
But I regard this guy as a genius. Deadmau5, spelled Deadmau5.
Yeah.
And very commercial. Like a lot of it's, he gets. It's very, very produced, but that's the idea. I mean, the computer is the instrument, basically, and I just think the dude's a genius. He puts out all sorts of different kinds of things. He recently put out, because with that kind of music, it's like all about the drop. It's like the build up, and then it's like, when's the drop? And he recently put out an album where there's no drops. And it's just like orchestral music. Like he put out like an orchestral album of like versions of his songs.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not super deep into a lot of artists' discographies in that realm, but it's funny that that's the next topic we go on to, because another one of my old roommates, Robert Friedman, another close friend of mine, is a huge dubstep head. I mean, he's not for like every artist in dubstep, but more so he's a producer who really loves Skrillex's sound, like the way Skrillex gets everything. I mean, obviously he loves them musically, but just the quality to the audio that he gets and the way he works Ableton, or I think Ableton is what he works in, but he's just like he's like very into like breaking down how producers get their sounds, and he's really nerdy about that stuff.
Skrillex kind of was. I mean, I'm sure he didn't create dubstep, but he definitely popularized it, and he became the icon. I know somebody like Deadmau5. I don't even know what his I can't even remember what his actual name is, but he just goes by Deadmau5. And I know that he's come out kind of trashing guys like Skrillex. I mean, he's sort of controversial with that, actually. He's got a pretty big ego, I think, but I mean, I do think he's the best.
Yeah, so. Little tension is kind of fun. I just hope they keep both making good music. Fight it out for all I care. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so now bringing it back a little bit more to the instrumental side of things. Do you have let's say we're talking like mostly in the realm of like straight ahead, quote unquote, jazz. Obviously we're in the realm of like Black American music, as it's termed. But if we're talking about straight ahead, upright bass, drums, swinging hard, who's your favorite rhythm section? Like I said before, I'm big into Mingus. Mingus and Danny Richmond is a huge influence for me. Do you have a similar combo that you love to hear that you think just swings harder than anyone else?
Oh, man. I mean, it's funny because I almost feel like when somebody asks me a question like that, I almost feel this pressure like I have to say a rhythm section from the 60s or even the 50s. But I mean, like, Christian McBride really changed the game for me. Like, I saw him play, I saw him in like 2007 maybe with Pat Metheny. And I mean, that trio, like Pat Metheny trio, that was with Antonio Sanchez and Christian McBride. I guess as far as like just swinging, I mean, they wouldn't be the first people I would mention, but that really inspired me to play bass. Actually, just seeing Christian McBride. I mean, I came for Pat Metheny because I was a guitar player, but I stayed for Christian, and he just made me fall in love with that instrument. But yeah, I mean, Kind of Blue, that's just the hookup there.
For the
I mean,
listeners who don't know, Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, one of the most legendary jazz
yeah,
albums ever.
and yeah, like Kind of Blue is cited as, I think it is it's the best-selling jazz record in history. But yeah, I mean that rhythm section is just like, it's like they don't move, and it's just, um, man, can you take this out of the, Under the Pressure? It's Jimmy Cobb and it's PC, right?
I knew
Or
it was Peace. I'm trying to
it's
remember
Jimmy.
who's on.
I definitely don't want to be on air like not remembering the rhythm section of Kind of Blue.
Hey, listen, am pretty sure it's PC on there too, but I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't read a lot of the personnel on artists like that. Or I don't know. I feel like when I was learning about that album, I wasn't reading about it. I was like learning about it in like a theory class or something in high school. But that's like, it's not even really my favorite Miles Davis album. Like, I'm more into Second Great Quintet. But like we said, it's legendary stuff. And
Yeah, I'm just looking it up really quick. Kind of Blue. Yeah, exactly.
Jimmy and Paul.
So it's, yeah, Paul Chambers and Jimmy Cobb on Kind of Blue, and and it's funny because I think Jimmy Cobb was not the first. He was sort of a last minute call for that session, but he was so perfect, and that is something that I think. And it's funny because a lot of older musicians will say things like this, like, "Oh, the young guys can't swing," and you don't really hear people swinging like they used to. And I think there is a little bit of truth in that. We, like, in the younger generations of the music, like, we're getting a lot more. We do start to. We're getting away from swing a lot more, and that's not bad. It's just, I mean, that's just the evolution of music. But there was something in just playing 4/4 swing, of just like, there were these rhythm sections you don't really hear that. You don't really hear that these days, of a hookup, like a bassist and a drummer really just laying down quarter notes and not feeling like they have to insert themselves over the music all the time. Like that, I mean, I'm known as being a very active bass player, and I know that it's the reason I get certain gigs, and it's the reason that I don't get other ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just, and of course I'm always striving to become a better musician, and to and whatever that means. And I know I'm always trying to be conscious of, like, am I playing too much? Am I, like, how like, I'm always trying to keep the bigger picture in mind. But yeah, as far as just really just playing, I know that Benny Green, Benny Green, amazing piano player. He played with Ray Brown for a period of time, and his trio is, I mean, he's kind of changing his rhythm section up, his bass player and his drummer, kind of frequently. But I mean, I think of modern day guys that are really just holding down the tradition of swing. I mean, he's a master of that, and he's very active on Facebook. He's always making these really long posts, and he recently made a rant, if you will, about just really wanting to hear just in this new generation, in our current generation, just wanting to hear bass and drums just be able to lock in on quarter notes, and just be content with that, and not have to just move, and not have to break up the time,
Yeah.
Well, so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, for me in particular, when I'm walking, I have a tendency to try to throw in like ghost notes and little skips and stuff over the quarter notes, and that's one thing I've always had to work on, is to just try to keep it nice and simple and really foundational. I don't know, like you said, I get that struggle of not wanting to overplay, and it's just trying to find that delicate balance and always develop. So I mean, there's many different ways you can look at it or try to take it, but I think either way, there's always going to be a place for that mindset as well as just taking that straight ahead feel somewhere else. Like even back with like Mingus, if you listen to like Fables of Fabus, like they're doing stuff that's like swing, but they're breaking it up and they're doing different patterns that are swinging, but they're so unconventional and
totally.
not on the beat. And like the things you can do with it and still be in that realm are cool, but there's something to be said about that ability to just make quarter notes feel great, you know?
Totally, yeah. And something that I think I almost think that this is a product of the fact that jazz has become so much institutionalized, and the reality today is that the majority of students of the music are going to actual schools and like academia to learn. And I think just something that I have noticed is it seems like there's this emphasis when, especially with rhythm section, when you're studying the music and you're going to school and you're taking all these classes and you're trying to learn like how do we play this music to the best of our ability. I almost think that they go too far with this thing of like time having to be a rock, and I think people start to think they get very obsessed with like time can't move because everybody's afraid of dragging and rushing, because we just hear about that all the time. It's like you like, God forbid you drag or you rush, and so yes, of course there's truth in that, because you don't want the music to be sagging or taken off, but I think that it's almost like once you learn the rules, you get like then you can break them. And I think fluidity with the time, it's like, because I mean, just even with the masters of the music, the time can be and should be flexible. And I mean, even in my own band, it's something I look for. I want, and I even talk about it with the musicians. I'll say, like, if I feel like just randomly changing tempos, I want to feel free to do that and have everybody go with me. And actually, I want to bring Ari Hoenig back up, because that's something that, it's like he's regarded as the master of time on drums. He's figured out all of this crazy rhythmic stuff. And a lot of people quote him as kind of just being a master with that stuff. And even him, he's changing the time. He wants it to be breathable. It shouldn't be so locked in like it's military, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's similar to that whole discussion of like overplaying versus just playing the role of the bassist. It's like it's so subjective. Where do you find that balance between doing what's technically right and what feels right in the moment? And I feel like it comes down to just knowing how to listen and do it on purpose. But it's such a hard thing to balance.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, all awesome stuff. I really like what we're getting into, but I do gotta wrap this up shortly. I got
of course.
a couple other little things I want to touch on real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put the straight ahead stuff aside. Now, if you had to name a funk fusion bass and drum lockup, maybe electric bass doesn't have to be, but maybe like an electric bass drum combo that you really love that is funkier rather than swinging, like what's your go-to? For me, I'm a big Paul Jackson, Mike Clark kind of guy. I don't know about you.
Wow, I have to admit I haven't gotten super heavily into that stuff. But I mean, what's the my brain's not working right now. What's Wayne Shorter's band back in the day?
Which era? I don't know. I'm thinking of a lot of different albums. Like High Life for me with Marcus Miller is one I really love, or like Atlantis.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like when with Jocko.
Oh, Weather Report.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Weather
yeah.
Report.
Okay, I thought you were talking solo albums.
No. Weather Report. Yeah, I mean those guys. That's just. I don't know. I think they're the kings of that era. And I mean, Jocko was something really special, and yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think.
I feel you, man. I mean, I'm a big Headhunters guy, but Weather Report is still killing,
True,
and
yeah.
that Jocko Peter Erskine lockup is amazing. I mean, I feel you, man.
I actually just recently started checking out some Steps Ahead stuff.
Oh yeah, I still
With
gotta get hipper to that stuff. I'm not super deep into that either. I gotta get there.
yeah, they there's this YouTube video. It's the tune is called Beirut, and it's a live show. And I mean, the graphics are awesome. They're just so 80s, and that tune is just pure groove. It's Daryl Johns, I think is. I mean, it's funny because there's Daryl Johns.
Well, no, you
Who's a young
Daryl
bass
Jones.
player.
Yeah, I know.
Daryl Jones.
Yes, Daryl Jones is the
Daryl
older.
Jones,
He played
exactly.
with Miles Davis and Herbie and all that. I know who you're talking about. He's amazing.
Yeah, and yeah, he's just laying it down, and that's and then you got Michael Brecker on Iwi.
Yeah.
And they're just rocking out, and I totally love that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like I said, I got to listen to more, but great stuff. Amazing musicians. Also, shout out to Daryl Johns. I have made that mistake before.
Yeah.
But all right. One more thing before the wrap up starts. I like to talk about comedy a lot on the show. I'm a big comedy fan. Do you have a particular favorite stand-up comedian or someone who, or maybe two or three who have really influenced you?
Well, now that you mention it, I just recently watched Bo Burnham's special.
I still haven't watched that yet. I've seen his older ones. I gotta.
Right. It's called Inside, and he took an entire year of the pandemic to complete it. And man, it's funny because it's called comedy because he's a quote unquote comedian. But yeah, like it gets pretty dark because it's just so real. I mean, he's so, and I mean, that's always what I appreciate in comedy is just like just being really raw and I mean that's what makes it so relatable and what that's in my opinion that's what makes good comedy is just honesty. Mike Birbiglia is somebody on long drives I like to put him on.
Yeah, what was the name of his last special? I'm pretty sure.
I can't recall.
Is his last one the one where he's got like he takes out like the toys and the thing he has to wear when he's sleeping because of his. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. I mean, because I've only actually listened to it. I haven't watched it.
Right.
But that sounds like the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. Either way, great recommendations all around. Two great guys. Bo Burnham definitely doing his own thing. Like really interesting artist.
Yeah. Well, he's sort of a songwriting genius.
Yeah.
And it's all satire almost, but it's really well done.
Oh yeah, he's amazing. I really gotta watch that new special. But all right, I got my little comedy fix in. I'm glad we touched on that because I'm a big stand-up nerd as well. But listen, Ben, it's really great talking to you. Amazing interview.
Likewise,
I appreciate
Brad.
you coming on. So you got your new single out tomorrow. Where should people be keeping an eye out for the other upcoming single?
Yeah, so you can pre-save that on Spotify or Apple Music. You can go ahead and pre-save that now. In fact, let me read that out really quick. It's I think it's outsideinmusic.com. So the label is Outside In Music. Oh yeah, so if you could go to this website. It's music.outsideinmusic.com/emotion. Music.outsideinmusic.com/emotion, and you can go ahead and pre-save the single there. And then look out for the next one. It's going to be called that tune's San Francisco Old Red. That's coming out in August. And then Rare Peace is the name of the album, the full album that's coming out in September.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing it, man. Thank you again, and y'all definitely
Yeah,
have to.
thank you so much for having me, Brad.
Yeah. We'll have to do it again sometime. But thank you.